Hey, I'm Srini, the creator of Maximize Your Output with Mem. Are you tired of juggling multiple mems for a single project? You wish there was a more efficient way to keep all your project communication in one place? Well, you're in luck because in this video, I'm going to show you the concept of a client communication mem template. And this isn't just a template, it's like your project inbox, like a command center where you can link all the related mems and keep track of all related communication to a specific project within a single mem. So you can say goodbye to the chaos and hello to streamlined, efficient project management. Now, let's get into the video and transform the way that you collaborate with other people in Mem. So one of the reasons I want to do this video is because of the fact that I was running into problems with communicating with my own clients that I'm managing. And Mem is great for a lot of things, but one of the places where I think that it can be challenging is with collaboration. You can share mems, but it can often be hard to keep track of when somebody has updated a mem, or it can be challenging to know who's commented on a mem or what changes they've made. So in order to deal with that, because of the fact that when you're working with a client, you might have 20 or 30 different mems all related to different concepts, I was working with MemChat to streamline my own client management process, and MemChat helped me come up with this concept called the client collaboration mem. And so I thought I would do a tutorial about it to explain how it works and how much more efficient it is and how much more effective it is than just creating mems and sharing them with people. Because if you've done that, you know that when you make an update to it, it can sometimes get lost in the shuffle. But this actually keeps all the communication related to a particular project or a particular partner you're collaborating with in one mem. And you can link all of the related mems. So we'll get into how to do that here. So the first step to all of this is setting up your client communication mem template. And usually this format is going to stay exactly the same. So you want to create a template so that you can use it over and over again. And within the template, you can literally just say client communication mem, either use the project name or use the name of the client. And basically the idea here is that we're going to use it as effectively a replacement for email rather than having to have people chase you down or send you text messages. Everything stays within a single mem that's related to that particular project. So a couple of things that are important to note here. First, you want to give people guidelines on how to use this. Now, this is my template. You might have a different way to structure it, but I wanted to be able to do this in a way that it just became a replacement for email, chat, or text, so that it would effectively be like a long thread that streamlines all your communication related to a project. So instead of having to chase down text messages, emails, or other things in other tools, you have it all inside of here. So first thing that I always have people do is write this just as they would write an email. The second is to add a line break. Why do we do that? The line break is great because it separates things out, and I'll show you examples here in just a second. And then, of course, you want them to sign the comments, so that way they know whether you wrote the message or the client wrote the message or who wrote it. And this actually would work really well even if you're collaborating with 3 or 4 people. And then finally, the last piece of this is one thing that I noticed is that even when you're working with a client, you have to share every single mem. And often when I'm doing work for a client, I will often have them create the mems that they need to create and share them with me, only because of the fact that at some point I need them to remove me from that sharing. And if I'm the one who creates in my account, that's going to become more of a hassle. And then the final thing is to check it for updates. And this is the best part about all of this that kind of streamlines the communication, is that it moves to the top of the timeline. So let's actually go into a example version of this just so you can see what this looks like. So you can see here that I have a couple of different client communication mems. So you can see here, basically, actually cut this. All right. Let me show you an example of what this looks like in practice. You can see here that I've tagged it with the name of the project. And you can see here that I have an introductory message here, just basically shows them how to use this mem. You'll see here's the line break. And then you can see here that he even puts in a subject line. I also started adding a date, which is great. And I think that this is super useful in terms of being able to answer all your questions in one place for a client, and to keep the communication going and just keep people updated on what is going on. And the best part about all of this is that when you make an update to this, it rises to the top of the timeline in somebody's mem account. So that way you're not having to chase them down or having them email you or text you or asking for things. You can basically keep it all within mem. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that we have this snipped integration update, And you'll see here that I've actually shared this snipped integration update with my client, and then I linked it from here. So that way, even if I make a reference to something within here, the client can still access it. So it's really important to make sure that whenever you link a mem inside of this client communication mem setup, that you actually share it with the person that you want to have read it. Maybe it's 3 or 4 people, depending on how this is. But in a lot of ways, this kind of acts as the project inbox is one way you could think of it. You could basically call it a project inbox mem, which might be a better name for this than client communication mem. But you can see here that it just streamlines the communication. And the thing is that what this really does more than anything is it prevents you from having to basically look throughout mem or figure out when people don't update things. So you can see here that we've gone over how to use the client communication mem. We've talked about line breaks. We've talked about linking to other mems and how important that is and how important it is to share them. But this way, rather than cluttering up your project plan page with a bunch of communication or having the communication scattered across multiple mems and having to keep track of multiple mems in terms of what needs to happen, you have everything in one mem, which basically becomes like your project inbox. And in the same way that email operates, the moment that you make any updates to the mem, you'll actually see it come to the top of the timeline. And so you can see here that right now it's giving me something here, which is the current mem we're working on. But let's say that I go into the client communication mem and just put something like DTE demo for client collab mem. Then if we go to our home screen, what we'll see eventually, not immediately in this case, but what we should see is that this will actually rise to the top of the timeline. And as a result, you're no longer lost when you're collaborating with people. So that, in a nutshell, is the way to streamline client communication inside of Mem. So let's go through the steps just to recap. First, you want to set up a client communication Mem template that just becomes your centralized repository for communication, or think of it as a project inbox or a collaboration inbox for whoever you're collaborating with. You can have MemChat actually do this for you, just depending on what the nature of it is. In fact, that's probably the fastest way to do it, just to make it easier. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a good format that doesn't make it just another mess. And that's why I incorporated chronological comments to mine, where I put the date at the top of everything. A subject line, literally you just treat it like an email inbox. And then, of course, linking to other notes. And this is where it differs from an email inbox, in that you could have 1,000 different things, but you don't have to go searching for files that you need to attach. You can just add links to different notes and different resources. And then finally, we have the timeline piece, which is the sort of linchpin of this whole process, because of the fact that it moves to the top of the timeline anytime somebody updates that client communication mem. And so as a result, you end up with a much more streamlined workflow for collaborating with other people inside of Mem. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below.